Today, the U.S. Department of Justice has released a new batch of documents connected to the Jeffrey Epstein case, one of the most disturbing and controversial criminal investigations in modern American history. The release includes thousands of pages of records, such as investigative reports, interview summaries, and evidence logs. However, many of these documents contain heavy redactions, reigniting public anger and raising new questions about transparency, accountability, and justice. This release follows years of public pressure, lawsuits, and congressional demands for answers, especially regarding who knew what, when they knew it, and why so many questions remain unanswered. In this video, we'll break down what was released, what's missing, why the documents are redacted, and what this means legally and politically moving forward. This is not speculation. This is about documented records, legal procedures, and the ongoing search for accountability. Who was Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein was a wealthy financier with deep connections to powerful individuals across politics, business, and global elite circles. For years, Epstein was accused of running a sex trafficking operation involving underage girls. Despite early allegations and a controversial plea deal in 2008, Epstein avoided significant prison time for more than a decade. That plea deal, often described as unusually lenient, allowed Epstein to serve time under highly favorable conditions. Critics argue it protected not only Epstein, but potentially others connected to him. In 2019, Epstein was arrested again on federal sex trafficking charges. Weeks later, he was found dead in his jail cell under circumstances that sparked worldwide suspicion and outrage. His death ended the criminal case against him, but it did not end the questions. Why the Epstein files matter. The Epstein files are not just about one man. They represent how law enforcement handled credible abuse allegations, whether victims were ignored or silenced, whether powerful individuals received protection, and whether the justice system applied equally to everyone. For years, victims, journalists, and lawmakers have demanded transparency. Many believe the full truth about Epstein's network has never been revealed. That's why every document released generates enormous attention and enormous frustration when information is withheld. What the DOJ released this time. In this latest release, the Department of Justice published thousands of pages of materials tied to Epstein-related investigations. These include internal law enforcement records, interview summaries, evidence inventories, case notes from multiple agencies. The release was made under new transparency requirements and ongoing public records litigation. However, while the volume of documents is large, the visible information is limited. Names are blacked out, details are removed, entire pages are partially unreadable. This has led critics to argue that while the DOJ technically released the files, the substance remains hidden. If you watched till this point, kindly subscribe. Let's proceed. Why are so many documents redacted? According to the Department of Justice, redactions are applied for several legal reasons. First, to protect the identities of victims and potential victims, many of whom were minors at the time of the crimes. Second, to avoid compromising ongoing or related investigations, including civil cases. Third, to protect individuals who were mentioned in documents but never charged with a crime. And fourth, to comply with privacy laws and court-ordered confidentiality rules. While these explanations are legally valid, critics argue the redactions go far beyond what's necessary. Some pages are so heavily censored that they offer little to no usable information. Public reaction and bipartisan criticism. The reaction to the release has been swift and intense. Victims' advocates say transparency is essential for healing and accountability. Lawmakers from both political parties have criticized the DOJ, saying the release feels incomplete and evasive. Some members of Congress are now calling for independent oversight, a special prosecutor review, or further unredacted disclosures under court supervision. On social media, many Americans say the redactions reinforce the belief that powerful people are protected while victims are left waiting. What these files do, and do not, prove it's important to be clear about what these documents do and do not establish. These files do not automatically prove criminal guilt for individuals whose names may appear in redacted or unredacted form. Being mentioned in investigative materials does not mean someone committed a crime. However, the files do show the scale of the investigation, the number of potential witnesses, the complexity of Epstein's operations, and the systemic failures that allowed abuse to continue. This distinction is critical, both for fairness and for credibility. Legal implications. Moving forward, legally, this release may have several consequences. Civil lawsuits brought by Epstein's victims are still ongoing, and newly released materials could influence those cases. Courts may order additional disclosures if judges determine the public interest outweighs privacy concerns. Congress could also pass stronger transparency laws requiring clearer explanations for redactions in high-profile cases. While criminal charges against Epstein ended with his death, legal accountability is not necessarily over. Why this story isn't over. Despite the release, this story is far from finished. More documents are expected, more lawsuits are pending, and more pressure is building on federal agencies to explain past decisions. The Epstein case has become a symbol of public distrust in institutions and how they handle crimes involving wealth, power, and influence. Every new disclosure adds another piece to a puzzle that many believe is still incomplete. The release of the Epstein files raises difficult but necessary questions about justice, transparency, and accountability. While protecting victims must always come first, so must the public's right to understand how the system operates, especially when it fails. As more information emerges, the demand remains the same: truth, accountability, and justice, without fear or favor. Thank you for watching. Stay informed and stay focused on the facts. Subscribe to this channel if you want to keep following up on updates like this.